Hello, Marisol. Marisol. Hello. Excellent. Good morning, Joe.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning. Mayor Leos, good morning.
Well, Mr. Howard, this is Roger Williams. Can I help you? I think Eduardo's off for just a moment. Yeah, we'll make it obvious when we're getting ready to do roll call. No problem. We're all set though. We got good audio, good video. Everything looks good on the streaming. All right. Thank you.
Hello, Eduardo. Can you hear me?
Hello, Mayor. Mr. Calvo is out for just a second here. He'll be right back. Can I help you with anything?
No, I just wondered if you guys
Roger.
could hear me.
Yep, we got you loud and clear.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Yes, ma'am. I was trying to get a hold of Marisol. This is Walter Miller. I'm on this call and I'm unable to unmute my mic, and also the audio quality I can't understand anything that's going on. So I don't know if there's something they can do, or I'm going to have to call in, but it's awful. I haven't been able to understand anything.
Hey, Walter, if you can hear me now, this is Eduardo.
Can you, excuse me, can you hear me on the call?
I can hear you perfectly on the.
I can't understand what you're saying, Eduardo. I may have to call in.
Yeah, go ahead and try it again. Get out of the WebEx and try it again. Yeah, because I can hear him perfectly, but he cannot hear us, and we can see him well. So. Okay.
Hey Eduardo, it's David Coronado, City.
Hey, David. Thanks for joining us.
Sure.
Eduardo, I'm here.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. So, Mayor, FYI, we have a new member from the county. So I don't know if you know, but we got the official letter a couple of days ago. But Commissioner Leon is now going to be replacing Commissioner Perez in the TPB. However, Commissioner Leon cannot attend today's meeting. He will not be in attendance. So just as an FYI.
That's fine. I understand why he's not there too.
Great.
Moving to June with the rodeo to see maybe if there's some interest.
You on?
Maybe this is Sam. Pam, same problem as Walt.
Good morning, Eduardo. This is Chuck.
Good morning, Chuck.
Eduardo, Dr. Morgan just called me. He can't log on either. He's having problems. Same as Walter. He said.
Yeah.
This is Walter. Can y'all hear me okay now?
We can hear you fine, Walter. Can you hear us?
Okay, things seem to be better on my end. Yes, things seem to be cleared up. I got out and logged in, re-logged in, and it be better.
Okay, great.
Good morning. This is Art.
Good morning, Representative Fierro.
How are you? How's everybody doing there?
Again?
How's everyone doing?
Well, I'll speak for myself. Thank you.
You know, it's safer that way when we speak for ourselves.
That's right.
All right, I'm going to mute so I don't make too much background noise.
Great, thank you. Mayor, we're still not, I don't believe we have quorum yet. Let's give it a couple minutes.
Eduardo, are you counting me?
Yes.
How much longer are you gonna wait, Eduardo?
Yeah, I think we have it now. Marisol, I think if you can start the streaming and the recording, please. All right, Mayor. So we're going to start the meeting with a formal roll call. Our attorney, Sergio Estrada, has advised us that we need to hear people, answer present. So please make sure that you unmute your microphones when I'm calling your name. I'm starting with the chair, vice chair, and then going down by alphabetical order. So let's start with Mayor Margot.
Present.
Representative Lynn Ortega.
Present.
Mayor Antonio Araujo. Okay. State Representative Cesar Blanco.
Present.
State Senator Joseph Cervantes. Right. Mr. Trent Doolittle. Mr. Doolittle, Trent.
I'm present.
Thank you. Representative Art Fierro.
Present.
Right. Representative Mary Gonzalez. Representative. Okay. City Manager Tommy Gonzalez.
Present.
Yvette Hernandez. Thank you. State Rep Raimundo Lara. Okay. Commissioner Carlos Leon. All right. Mayor Manuel Leos.
Present.
Representative Sissy Sarra.
Good morning, present.
Thank you. All right. Chuck McMahon. Chuck McMahon.
Did you hear me? I'm here.
Okay, great. Thank you. Alderman Miller.
Present.
Representative Joe Moody.
Present.
Right. City Representative Sam Morgan.
Present.
Right. Alderman Esteban Olivas. Norma Palacios.
Present.
All right. Mayor Javier Perea.
Present.
Thank you. Representative Henry Rivera.
I'm told Representative Rivera is having some technical difficulties.
Okay. We'll get back. State Senator Jose Rodriguez. Rodriguez. Okay. Representative Rene Rodriguez.
Here.
Thank you. Sam Rodriguez. All right, Sam Rodriguez. Okay. Mayor Benjamin Romero. Okay. Ricardo Samaniego. All right. Ellen Smythe.
Present.
Tomás Treviño.
I'm here, Eduardo.
Thank you. And Mayor Diana Trujillo. All right, so Mayor, we do have, so we're ready to start.
All right, you want to scroll up on the agenda? Do we have any anybody signed up for open comment?
No, we don't have anything signed up for open comment.
Okay, then let's go to item number 1.
All right, item number 1 is discussion and action to approve the minutes of August 21, 2020 meeting.
To approve.
Mayor, this is Walter Miller. Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Representative Ortega, second.
Any further discussion? Not, let's vote. Or no, we'll do it this way. Anyone opposed, please vote. Hearing none, and motion passes unanimously. Let's go to item 2.
All right, item 2 is to authorize the executive director to submit comments on behalf of the TBB in response to the request for information on the interim charges from the Transportation Committee of the Texas House of Representatives.
Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
This is Walter Miller, second.
Okay, Eduardo, give us your discussion on this.
Again, the what you see on the screen is a document that we received from the House, from the Committee on Transportation, and again, State Rep Ortega, since you are a member of that, I don't know if you want to make some initial comments on that.
I'd be happy to, Eduardo. The reason that there was a request to submit information is because of the pandemic. The committee is not having its regular interim hearings, and instead the chair selected to request that testimony be submitted through letters in order to consider the interim charges that the speaker gave the committee. And it's very appropriate on two of the interim charges that the NPO submit comment. And this is a reason that Mr. Calvo has prepared the letters to submit. There is a deadline that is set for today to actually submit the letters to the transportation chair and to the committee members.
Thank you, Rep. Ortega, and to the members of the board. We distributed these letters a couple days ago. Again, we would have liked to give you a little more time to look at them, but if you all want me to go through them with a little more detail, I think it would be a good idea. But I think, like Rep. Ortega said, the two specific charges that we're responding to. One of them, the one that you see on the screen, is for charge 1B that has to do with providing funding or looking for all funding opportunities to accelerate transportation projects. So basically what we're saying there, two things. One is that, we would like to have as many tools available. In other words, tools in the toolbox. And, historically, I think El Paso has been able to take advantage of many of these tools since, 2001, 2003, in that time frame where many of these new tools were given to us by the legislature. And by those tools, it's a long list. It includes the creation of RMAs, pass-through financing, and through the years, there's been also some bonding programs that helped us to accelerate projects throughout the state as well. What we're saying is that there is no single solution to the funding problem, but the more options we have, the better off we are. And of course, not every tool works for every project. Not every tool works for every community or every region, right? So the first point is the tools. The second point is really that the use of these tools really should be a local decision, right? Austin or Washington, D.C. or anybody really should be forcing us or precluding us from using tools that we as a region choose to use, right? If we decide locally that we want to do it, well, we should be able to have access to those. So again, it's twofold. One is having as many tools as we can, and the second, let us choose. And again, a lot of this is in response to what happened earlier this year with the funding of I-35 in Austin. There is no question that is a tremendously important and needed project, but I think many of us had a little bit of heartburn in the way that funding was developed for that project, where initially that project, in the early stages, that project was contemplated as a toll facility. And of course, with the traffic levels and the congestion levels, the numbers, look pretty good as far as raising a lot of money to build it. But again, now that we are under this, non-toll environment at the state level, the decision was to change the funding for that. And instead of, or taking out the tolling element, then the commission decided to put a huge chunk of Proposition 12 project. And of course, that doesn't help us in the rest of the state, right? So what we're saying is, well, if a region wants to toll, let them toll. And, we see that in projects in Dallas and Houston and Austin, other projects that have been very successfully implemented as toll projects, and more importantly, accelerated, right? Because if we're going to wait for traditional funding to be available, then those projects will likely be delayed for years. So in a nutshell, that's what we're saying in that letter. So just wanted to make sure that everybody knew what was in the context of that one. Anything?
Do you have any questions? Orlena, do you want to speak? You're muted.
The reason that these letters are important is because once they are submitted to the committee, there is an interim report that's put together based on the information that's being provided in these letters. And that report then is submitted to the legislature. And what Mr. Calvo is saying with regard to the issue of tolling, he's correct. The climate right now is actually hurting us, because Austin was ready to actually toll for I-35, but the reason that they didn't is because of the climate, and so much funding from the UTP went to Austin, which hurt us on funding projects here in our community. And so it's very important for the MPO to send these letters and submit them on these interim charges.
Thank you. Does anybody else have anything? We've got a motion and a second. I'll go ahead and do the vote then. If no
Yes.
one else-
Yeah, I have something, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
This is Tomas with text out for the record. I'd just like to show that I'm abstaining.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion, a second, one abstention. Anyone opposed, please vote. Hearing none, passes with one abstention.
Great.
Let's go to number 3.
Thank you. All right, number 3, items 3 through 8 are recommendations coming from the transportation, from TPAC. So it's discussion and action to approve recommendation from the Transportation Project Advisory Committee to 3, amend the Destino 2045 Metropolitan Transportation Plan and Destino 2019-2023 Transportation Improvement Program. 2A, amend the New Mexico 404 widening project to reduce state legislative funds, increase National Highway Performance Program funds, increase Surface Transportation Program large urban funds, increase STP flex funds, and increase border infrastructure funds in fiscal year 2022.
Is there a motion to approve? Is there a motion to approve?
So this is Miller, so moved.
Second. Who seconded?
Representative Rodriguez.
Okay, all right, any discussion on this? Any presentation? If not, then anyone opposed, please vote. Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
All right. Okay, item 3B is to deprogram Lisa Drive Connectivity Project Construction Phase 1 using Transportation Alternative Program TAP funds in fiscal year 2021.
Is there a motion to approve?
Representative Ortega, motion to approve.
Second, Representative Lizarraga.
Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, then anyone opposed, please vote. Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
Right. And item C, which is the program Lisa Drive Connectivity Project Construction Phase 2 using TAP funds in fiscal year 2022.
Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second, Palacios.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, anyone opposed, please vote. Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
Right. Mayor, I will read the item here, and I will also would like TPAC Chair McNichol to make any thoughts or any comments, Mr. McNichol, since you are the TPAC Chair. So
Sure.
item number 4 is to approve the September 2020 Project Readiness Report. Greg?
Good morning, Greg McNichol, Chairman of the TPAC. On this item, I wanted to point out as you go through it that you will find now that they have identified those critical projects in some other color than red. I think they used purple, if I'm remembering correctly, so that you can identify those key projects for this the project list has some minor things that may be of importance to you. Most of the projects are on schedule and looking good. I know that Brian is available to take you through the details of the report if you've got them. A good example showing up here on the screen right now of one of those projects that's a part of the critical list here in El Paso that's shown as purple, not red anymore, so we can better identify those. I'll turn the floor over to Brian or to you all if you have any questions concerning the report.
Let's do a motion and we'll find out if there's any questions. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve, Representative Lizarraga.
Second,
Second by
Palacios.
Artiero.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there any questions? Hearing none. Anyone opposed, please vote. Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. Go to the next item.
All right, item 5, which is to adopt Sun Metro's Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan. Greg?
Yes, Greg Nickel, Chairman of the TPAC. Sun Metro is presenting to you all for consideration this safety plan primarily tied to the streetcar. And I'll turn the floor back over to y'all.
And Roger, perhaps you want to just give a little context here why this safety plan is important.
Sure. Thank you, Eduardo. So MPOs are to integrate the transit agency performance targets and the performance plans into our planning documents. So the safety plan has been developed here by Sun Metro, and it has been approved to them by them, and it was approved in time to meet the requirements. And the MPOs have 180 days after that, so there's still plenty of time, but the MPO has coordinated with Sun Metro, and we've reviewed the plan. We believe it's a solid plan, and we'd like to make the recommendation. We did make the recommendation to TPAC, and TPAC has made the recommendation to the policy board to go ahead and adopt their safety plan. And in that safety plan, the targets that are established will be the targets that we use to move forward with the development of our projects for safety and for transit projects as we move forward with the development of our MPO documents.
Yeah, this is Ellen Smythe. I'm Managing Director of Sun Metro. And this agency safety plan is a requirement of both the FTA and TxDOT. Previously, it was limited to the streetcar, but now this year they've included all of the fixed routes to go with it. And so the new plan was submitted earlier this year and was approved on April 14th. We just now started training on the manual for the rest of the employees at Sun Metro. And of course, it's a 3-year rollout because it's pretty extensive. And it does require approval by the MPO as the oversight.
All right. So we're good with that, Mayor.
Okay, we didn't have a motion to approve. Let's have a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second, Senator Rodriguez.
All right, any further discussion? If not, anyone opposed, please vote. Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. Let's go to number 6.
All right, number 6, approve the midpoint performance period on-road mobile source emission targets for carbon monoxide at 841.62 kilograms per day, and particulate matter less than or equal to 10 microns at 21.96 kilograms per day for the Texas portion of the El Paso MPO planning area, and PM10 at 3.42 kilograms per day for the New Mexico portion of the El Paso MPO planning area.
We have a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Or a second?
Second, Representative Ortega.
Okay, do you have discussion, Eduardo, on that?
Just real quick, I can share that as it states in this agenda item, we are at the midpoint of the emission period target testing that we're doing. And it's important primarily that the El Paso MPO continue to select good CMAQ projects, which we are, that are showing that we are working to reduce these and meet these levels that have been set.
And I'd like to add one other thing to that. Thank you, Mr. McNichol, for that. These reports are in your backup. And the MPO actually sets the targets in the state of Texas for CO and PM10, since we're the only non-attainment area in Texas for those 2 pollutants. And for New Mexico, we also set the targets for the PM10, as we're the only non-attainment area in New Mexico for PM10. So close coordination has been ongoing with the states, Texas and New Mexico, and this methodology and these targets are all in agreement. So the 4-year update to the targets that you see are what we are had recommended to the TPAC and now being recommended to the policy board. So the states of Texas and New Mexico can meet their requirements. And also the MPO is required to have 4-year targets. So all of this is to update what has already been done over the last couple of years. Now that we have more up-to-date information, we can move forward with the update to these targets. And I'll be happy to answer any other questions if you have.
Anybody have any questions or comments? Hearing none. We have a
Mayor,
motion.
this is Eduardo. Just one final thing that I think is very important for the board to hear is that, you know, once we start setting these targets for emissions, there really is going to be a little more pressure to actually select the better CMAQ projects that, you know, for implementation. So it's not just enough to select projects that are eligible. We really have to start looking at which are the ones that give us the better, the higher bang for the buck in terms of reducing emissions, because these targets, you know, right now it's still very early in the process of performance planning and, but once we start establishing these targets, and if we don't meet them in the next 2 to 4 years, then, you know, it's not going to be good. So it's going to be more pressure to select the better projects.
And I'd like to add one thing to that. Thank you, Eduardo. Not only good projects, but cost-effective projects. So the better we use our CMAQ funds, and CMAQ funds are, as we all know, in the state of Texas, we've taken a hit and a reduction in our CMAQ program. So cost effectiveness and good CMAQ projects is what we should be looking for moving forward.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, we'll vote. Anyone opposed? Please vote. Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
All right, item 7, approve the El Paso MPO's amended public participation plan. Greg?
Real quickly, this is being recommended to you to kind of reflect the new environment we're in with our online meetings. I'll turn the floor back over to you, sir.
Just to me or Eduardo? To me. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve Lizarraga.
Second by Art Fierro.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, just to let everybody know that the modifications to the public participation plan were pretty minor. It was just basically to allow us to do these meetings virtually as opposed to having them in person as we did before. So again, the revisions were minor, pretty obvious. We did not receive many comments, so it's a very straightforward.
Fine. If there are no other questions or comments, Chair will entertain a vote. Anyone opposed? Please vote. Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. Let's go to number 8.
All right. Item 8 is to adopt relative weights for decision length criteria. Greg?
I believe I'm going to, Eduardo, I'm going to go ahead and turn this back over to y'all, okay?
Great, thank you. All right, so if you recall, at last month's TPB meeting, we brought this item and the board decided to table it on following our recommendation to see if we could get more board members to participate in developing the weights. So we did get a few more participants in the process. So now we're bringing back the item to for you all to approve the relative weights. Mayor, we can do the presentation before if you want to go ahead and get the motions.
Let's have a motion to approve first.
Morgan, motion to approve.
Benjamin Romero, motion to approve, second.
Okay, let's do the presentation.
All right, so Gabby Lopez from MPO will go through this presentation. Gabby.
Good morning, I'm Gabriela Lopez with the El Paso MPO. I will be presenting the results, as Eduardo mentioned, from the pairwise comparison that was done for the relative weights for the decision length criteria that will be used for the development of the RMS 2050 MCP. So the El Paso MPO staff sent out an email on August 7th for the Transportation Policy Board members to register to decision lands and complete the pairwise comparison. And we had a total of 16 TPB members to complete the pairwise comparison. So we had 53% of the total policy board completed. And from this point forward in the presentation, we will see the results of the criteria weight. As we can remember, there is 4 main parent criteria that is going to be used in the criteria tree, and each parent criteria has additional child criteria. So here on the screen, we have the 4 main parent criteria, which is strategic priority, congestion management process strategies, project system, and national goals. And we can see the results that came from the pairwise comparison for the weight. So for strategic priority, the weight will be 35.45%. For CMP strategies, we have 26.41%. For project system, we have 22.75%. And for national goals, we have 15.39%. So from now on the presentation, we will look into each parent criteria and see the weight for the child criteria within. So starting with the parent criteria that had the highest weight, which is strategic priority, this one has 3 child criteria, which is resiliency and reliability, connectivity, and scheduling. And we can see here the percentages of the weight for each child criteria. So resiliency and reliability will be a 45%, connectivity 33.1%, and scheduling 21.4%. Moving on to CMP strategies, public transportation will be 29.2%, traffic operations and ITS 28.7%, travel demand management 24.5%, and road capacity 17.5%. Again, this is the percentage as a whole of just the congestion management process criteria. Moving on to project system, which was a total of 22.75%. Of that 22%, 45.8% will be for the block system, 27.2% for the active transportation system, and 27% for the national highway system. And the parent criteria with the lowest weight, which is national goals, will have safety 24.5%, infrastructure conditions 21.9%, environmental sustainability 15.8%, system reliability 12.6%, congestion reduction 10.4%, freight movement 7.8%, and as adopted by the policy board on the previous meeting, we separated freight movement and economic vitality. So the weight percent for economic vitality will be 7% of the whole national goal. So here on the screen, we can see the complete criteria all together in one criteria tree. So the percentages that are in each child criteria are as a whole of the 100%, all the parent criteria all together. So we can see how much it impacts if we were to assume that one project had a perfect score on every, or the perfect 100% weight on every criteria, how much percentage would be from each child criteria. So for example, for economic vitality, it would only be 1%. So if you have any questions, we will now open it up to discussion.
Anybody have any questions?
I have a question. Can you scroll down, please, to the last?
To this one where it has all the criteria?
Yes, this one right here. This one right here. You see, I have a question, and this is what I do not understand. Why is it that we're looking at strategic priorities when it should be national goals, which is the safety, the environmental, the system reliability, the freight movement, economic vitality? All of those are basically more essential to us than the rest, and yet it has a lower percentage base point. So my thing is that if we approve this, board, and this is what I want you guys to understand, is that if we approve this, we're hindering the ability to put our projects forward on some of these. So I do have an issue with this. I haven't done it, and I'll be straight and forward honest, because I think that what we have right now currently is better, and we have been working on it. And could we tweak it a little? Of course we can. But to say that we're going to move into this model, and I, for one, don't agree with this model because it's not going to benefit my project. Okay, so that means that it's going to be even difficult for me to propose some of my projects because they're not going to meet these criteria that we're asking for because it's offsetting whatever we have. That is my 2 cents.
Eduardo?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, Representative Rodriguez. Well, first of all, this is when we do these exercises, it's a collective exercise, right? So it's not just the opinion of one, but it's the opinion of all the people that participated here. Now, putting this decision lens exercise a little bit in perspective, this is not the only criteria for selecting projects, right? This is a tool, like we've always said, this is a tool that's going to help us collectively look at projects, compare projects between each other. It's not but again, so, it's not an absolute, decision-making process. There are other considerations as well. For example, the projects that the board has already included in the RMS 2020 plan, those are priority projects. So those remain as priority projects. But in order for us to build a new long-range plan, when we have such a tremendous amount of new projects that all the agencies have been submitting to us, it is important for us to have a little information on how they compare to each other. So it's not that we are that projects may not. The ones that may not be scoring high based on these relative weights, may not be the better projects. So that's good information. But if a project is a priority for the region, and regardless of what decision lens says, that those projects are still included in the plan. So again,
just to add to Mr. Eduardo, I'm not. All I'm saying is this is my opinion and my opinion alone. I'm not saying that this is the opinion of everybody else. I'm just saying that if we really look at it and we're really gonna do it, the projects that we have been scoring and that we have been using the system that we had before, and we're going to replace it with this, then none of our projects would have passed, because if you really look at it, the scoring would change. And that's what I'm saying, is that we need to understand that this system is going to change the way our projects are going to be rated and classified, and therefore may not qualify. That's all I'm saying. That is my opinion. And my opinion is still the same, and it's not going to change. If we have something that works, why change it? We can tweak it, but why change it? Because this is going to show that some of us are going to get hurt by the system. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Through the mayor, this is Miller. Through the mayor, I'd like to comment, please.
Go ahead, Walter.
I went through this exercise and I found it interesting, and I found it also a little bit confusing, but I've been trusting in the algorithm that puts it all together. To kind of respond to Mr. Rodriguez, when you go through the topics of this and when you actually do the exercise, many of they're not exclusive of one another. You will find congestion questions in strategic policy. It's not as they were all mutually exclusive. And I don't pretend to understand how the algorithm works or any of that, but at some point you have to trust the system and understand what they're doing. But just because we have national goals on the bottom doesn't mean that we didn't consider some of those items as very important in the other categories. And that's just the way the questionnaire was set up. My only real concern, I like this method of making you think think your way through and come to a consensus that you might not come to anyway. My concern is this, it seems to be a little more weighted to larger highway projects than some of my local concerns that I have. And that's my major concern, is there might be a little bit of a large project bias to this method. But other than that, I do think it's a good way to organize a number of people's way of, and put together in a presentable manner how a number of people think about transportation in an area. So I really do have to applaud Eduardo and the team for this effort. I'm also glad to hear him say that this is not the only criteria, but if you can wade through the confusion, I think you can kind of eventually see the benefit of this exercise. That's my comment.
Eduardo?
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up, Alderman Miller. So if you recall, when we used the decision lens to rank projects that ended up in the RMS 2020, well, if you recall, we did separate the TxDOT projects from the on-system projects versus the off-system projects, because we realized that you're absolutely right. It is very difficult to compare a big freeway widening project with a small intersection project, right? I mean, they're very difficult to compare. So what we did is that we separated and we compared the TxDOT projects by themselves. And then we separated the local government projects, separately, right, and ranked them. So we intend to do the same thing on these, because again, you're right. I mean, it's so difficult to make a fair comparison for these projects. So we will do that, and of course we will present those results to TPAC and to the board as we go through them.
And no, that's exactly. Oh, sorry, Mayor.
Go ahead.
And that's what I didn't want to come out and say it, but I'm just going to say it's kind of skewed to one project other than the smaller ones. I didn't just want to come out and say it. Thank you, Miller, for doing that. And that's basically what I wanted to say and address. I may not put anything very eloquently to you guys. I'm just a roughneck here, trying to just. It's my opinion, but that's what basically Miller hit it right on the head, and just to that's what I wanted to put my point across, is that now you're telling us that they're going to be getting separate. Then in that case, then it should be in a fair ground. I mean, we want our projects, because we can't compare a $10 million, $12 million, $15 million project versus a $1 billion project, because of course we're never gonna compete with points. So that's what I wanted to say and address. I just didn't want to come out and say, hey, well, only some of us here in the board are gonna have their projects, score higher than all of us, and that's what I didn't want to come out as. But thank you for addressing that, Mr. Miller, and thank you, Eduardo, for pointing that out, that you will separate them when it comes to that. So that changes everything.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and again, that's what we did for RMS 2020 last year, and it worked out very well. It was separating the projects because it's so difficult to compare apples and oranges.
Renee, I've, in my years on this board, I've never noticed you to be timid in any way, shape, form, or fashion. So I don't think reticent is part of your nature. So thank you, and thank you, Walter. If there are Lena, did you want to say something?
Yes, I have a question to Mr. Calvo. Eduardo, would the RMS 2020 been any different if we had been using the criteria that we see in front of the screen?
I don't know. The answer is I don't know, because certainly the actual numbers, the relative weights that we see now are are a little different from the weights that we used last year, which a lot of these were decided by the public years ago. So I doubt that the changes would be dramatic, but perhaps there would be some differences.
Some minor differences.
Again, this mechanism, decision list, gives us good information on how projects compare to each other. But there may be other reasons why the region may select a project and make it a top priority. So it adds to the decision-making process, but it's not an absolute, tool to make absolute decisions, right?
And ultimately, it's the policy board that decides what the plan it's going to adopt.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this is Senator Rodriguez. A question for Eduardo.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yes.
Eduardo, can multiple small projects be combined to get an overall ranking?
No. I mean, each individual project is ranked by itself and compared, to the rest.
Okay. Well, I thought by doing that, we might address some of the concerns that Representative Rodriguez brought up for small projects.
Right. Well, the other thing that we have to also see as we go through the process of looking at selecting these projects, we at the end of the day, we have to ensure that all of these work well as a system, right? So, right now at this point, yes, we're evaluating projects individually, but we also have to, once we get that list and once we compare it to the needs assessment, to the needs analysis part of the MTP that we're performing as we speak, we're also going to see how projects that are ranking, how are they also meeting the needs that we're identifying through the analysis, right? So we've got to, somehow match them. Yes, we take decision lens and we start with the projects that rank higher, but we also need to make sure that we're addressing the needs that we're determining.
So Eduardo, could we have it in writing that we could separate the projects from TxDOT projects from our projects? Because that's the issue that I, as a small municipality, because my needs are different than Horizon's, and of course we're both growing exponentially faster than the other small municipalities. So our needs are different than even El Paso's, but I know TxDOT has the brunt of it. So those are issues that we want, and if we could have it in writing, I think that'll just give us a little bit of ease our nerves, I guess, and we will know that we will at least be more competitive in this in project selection.
Okay. Perhaps what I think we can do and we should do is give you a more detailed plan of how we are, developing the new plan. How does, where does decision lens come in? Where does the financial considerations come in and all that? So we can definitely do that, Rep. Rodriguez.
Well, the bottom line is that this is not a all overarching decision-making software, whatever you want to call it. It's just a part of the decision-making process. So it's the same when it comes to us, and we'll vote on it. We may decide that we don't want to do what this particular how it comes out on this from a voting standpoint. So,
right.
Renee, you got your vote, you got your thing. I don't know that we need to do anything in addition to that. This is you've stated that this is just a process, a part of our process. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, if there's no further discussion, we have a motion and a second.
Mr. Chair, I do have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
This question is for Eduardo. How often will we be looking at the process, see if it's working with the goals of the MPO?
Well, we'll see how it goes with this MTP, and we'll come up with a recommendation. I don't think. Well, that's it's a good question. In other words, I don't know how often it is advisable to go through this exercise again to see if the relative weights, change. Maybe we should do it every 4 years, every time that we develop a new plan. But again, this is something. It's a guideline, right? We'll let you know how it. We haven't done the scoring yet. We were waiting for today to get the green light from you all to use these weights. But we'll see, and we'll definitely keep you all posted on how it's working. But
and the reason I bring up the question is because we had I believe it's 16 responses, but the makeup of the board might change. It changes frequently. So maybe the people whose responses are reflected today may not be the same 2 years, 3 years, 4 years down the road.
Right.
So and maybe we can have some sort of, okay, well, we revisit this, 4 years down the road, then maybe that'll be something.
Yeah, I think it does make sense. Every time we have a major call for projects, which is, when we develop a new plan, I think it's a good idea to do it, to revisit the weights, because yeah, you're right. I mean, the board changes, and a lot of these decisions on how these criteria, weigh, we all have different opinions, right? So that's why this pairwise comparison, even though it's a little more complicated and a little more tedious, like Mr. Miller was saying, but the way that the pairwise comparison works is that it is trying to take away as much as possible biases from individuals, right? So that's why they ask you repeatedly, how do you rate this against this? Then how do you rate this against this other one, right? If you just do a straight one question to say, well, here are 10 criteria and rate them, right? Well, that day, maybe you had a bad day on the freeway and you say, oh, congestion relief. So you're very biased that day towards congestion relief, right? But as you go through the process, again, it's a little longer and a little more tedious, but the whole process is to try to take away the biases and make sure that your answers are being consistent, right? And then, of course, it's not just one person, it's multiple people. So it's not a perfect system, and it's only the second time that we're using it here, to evaluate projects, but I'm pretty confident that as we go forward, we'll be improving the.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Eduardo. Appreciate it.
Through the mayor, this is Miller again.
Yes, Walter.
I want to take this opportunity to Mayor Paredes' point. We got a 53% response here. I'll guide the other members of the board a little bit. The numbers would have been more reflected had we had an 80 or 90% response. So that's the way these numbers work. So we had this issue in last meeting when we had a public participation thing, when the numbers were really low. We've got to do a better job of getting information into the tools that we have. And the board, excuse me for being a little bit of a nag, but the board has to take responsibility for doing that. So I just wanted to throw that in. I really would have liked to see an 85% number or 90% number here, and it would have improved the numbers. And who knows, it might have changed some of those rankings a little bit. Maybe not, but it's an important point that we should think about. And I'll get off my soapbox.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? If not, we have a motion and a second. Chair will entertain a vote. Anyone opposed? Please vote. Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. Let's go to the reports on number 9.
All right, thank you all. So now we move on to reports. Item 9 is preview of the project development process workshop. This is a brief presentation from TxDOT.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, Marty.
Okay. Good morning, Chair and board members. This is Marty Boyd, Director of Planning with the El Paso District of TxDOT. And this is just an announcement of something we're going to have available for the local governments. Is a workshop on the federal process a project has to go through, whether it's non-construction, as you see on the green, and the construction projects, which you see on the blue. We're going to be offering on an on-call basis, on demand, to all the local governments, whoever needs to have this workshop, and working with Eduardo and including this, as he recommended, to your training curriculum for the policy board and for TPAC. We'll do a very revised version, short version of it for that, but we expect these workshops to last about 4 hours. We will be doing examples with the local government on their projects. We'll do several examples, 1 or 2, whatever time they need, but the workshops will include from the beginning of a project initiation, the agreements, all the way to preliminary engineering, environmental, right-of-way, PS&E, letting and award, and then construction, and what it takes to close a project, and give them an idea of the time frame that each phase of the project development with the federal process takes. We know, and you were mentioning it, how things change. I think Mayor Perea was mentioning that, and that's why it's essential. We've done this very informally with local governments, but we want to make this available on an on-call basis, and anytime they need it, when they have new people, they need to be trained. This is geared towards project managers, whoever's doing the schedules and planning for the projects that are nominated for the MPO. And it comes at good timing now that we've gone through the project call, and this would be a good check for them to see. And if they have any questions on their project schedules, are they nominating them at the right time? What do they need to do, or where can they squeeze time when they do get funding and things need to be, they need to proceed quickly. So I just wanted to make that announcement. I know Horizon already showed interest when we presented this at TPAC. So we'll be scheduling coming October workshops for y'all. And of course, Eduardo will be including it in your curriculum for your training. And that is all, unless you all have any questions. But we'll take calls. Please call me or our local government coordinator, which is Blanca Serrano. You all are very familiar with her. So we'll be happy. Email me, call me, and we'll set all of you up. Thank you.
Any questions? Okay, let's move to number 10.
All right, item 10 is an update on the Texas-Mexico Border Transportation Master Plan Draft Priority Project List. So I'll start with this one. This is a presentation that we gave at BTAC, at the Border Trade Advisory Committee, of which I am a member of, representing the MPO, David Coronado representing the city with International Bridges, Commissioner Vince Perez representing the county, John Varela from the Borderplex Alliance, and Rafael Aldrete from TTI. So we sit at BTAC, and as you know, BTAC is serving as a steering committee for the Border Master Plan, which includes all of the regions. So at the last BTAC meeting, they asked each of the 3 border regions, which is El Paso, Laredo, and the Rio Grande Valley. They asked all of us to come up with a presentation to show or to speak about the regional priorities for each of the regions. So in this presentation at BTAC, well, we're just going to go through it pretty quickly. So next slide, please. So briefly, we're going to talk about the MPO region roadways, which are the RMS 2020 priority projects, recent major investments as well, binational tri-state connectivity, which is a really cool map that you see. And then I'll turn it over to David to talk about the cities, the bridges projects. And then Tomas Trevino will close with talking about the Presidio Ojinaga US 67 corridor. Again, Presidio and Ojinaga, obviously, outside of the MPO region, but it's part of the El Paso district. So it's important to keep it in that presentation. Next, please. So we told them a little bit about RMS 2020, how we came up with our priority projects back last year. But you see there under the second big bullet, the cross-border impacts. Of course, that all of our main projects here need to look at how they are benefiting the cross-border movement of goods and people. For us in El Paso, obviously, it's a tremendously important thing. So we told them that we already have identified our priorities. Next, please. So here, this is the map of the top 4 priorities identified. You see let's start with downtown 10, which is the segment of I-10 from pretty much from Executive Center to Copia Street. Then the next segment, which is actually it's from Copia. It really just goes to the airport. It doesn't go all the way to Loop 375. Then moving counterclockwise, Borderland Expressway. As you know, it's also one of the top priority projects. And then finally, the Aircraft, State Highway 178. What is really important in this map is to show how these projects relate to the international crossings. And the point that we've been making to TxDOT, to the Border Master Plan folks, and to BTAC is that for us, I-10 is tremendously important, not just for us that use it to commute, but for the movement of goods across the border. So you see, because of the closeness of all the international crossings, we know that all the traffic gravitates towards I-10, right? Whether you're crossing at the Zaragoza or Bridge of the Americas or the downtown bridges or even Aircraft. If you look at how Aircraft is a gateway to Santa Teresa and eventually, to the Union Pacific facility, but also to the Santa Teresa international crossing there. So again, everything gravitates to I-10. And of course, Borderland Expressway is a project that supports the I-10 corridor, providing that bypass to I-10. So again, for us, the part of the message is that in El Paso, we already know what the roadway priorities are, and we explain that to them. Next slide, please. Oh, these are again the images of the project that you all know. Now that's segment 2. Next, please. That's segment 3A from Copia to Airway. Then Aircraft. You see the image there, the proposal to build direct connector ramps, and Borderland Expressway. Next, please. What's also important is to tell them that the priority projects that we're showing are projects that are currently unfunded, except for Aircraft. That's the only one of the 4 that is funded. But it was important also to tell them of all the investments that we are currently making on facilities that support the movement of goods and people. This image here is Loop 375, the Americas segment. To the left, you see the Zaragoza port of entry. And then, of course, you see I-10, the interchange at I-10. So right now, as we speak, TxDOT is spending about $100 million in improvements to that corridor of Loop 375. At the same time, the city of El Paso, with the Wind Road, which is the one that you see there in yellow, that is a project that is improving the access to the Zaragoza port of entry. So
Master Craig,
we are already putting.
Hang on, we need to have everybody mute that's not speaking, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So again, collectively, we are spending a lot of money already in improving those facilities. And then, of course, we told them that the 375 and I-10 interchange, the Americas Avenue interchange, that was completed in 20. I believe the last piece was built completed in 2016, but it was an investment of close to $200 million to improve that interchange. So, these are tremendously important projects for us. Next slide. And then the other project that is under construction, the I-10 Connect, which are the improvements around the Spaghetti Bowl. But again, these directly will improve the flow of trucks and private vehicles to the port of entry, in addition to, of course, give us better connectivity between I-10 and Loop 375. Again, this is another project that's $96 million that is currently under construction, supporting the crossings of ports of entry. Next, please. Now, this is another really cool map that I think made an impact to BTAC compared to the other regions. The fact that we are coordinating with all the agencies, our neighbors across the border, with Ciudad Juarez, with the city of Juarez, with EMIP, which is their planning entity, with the state of Chihuahua and all that. So this is a really cool map that shows a binational transportation system on both sides of the border. What you see there in purple on the Texas side is Loop 375 leading to the Zaragoza Bridge, but as across the bridge, that leads to the loop on Juarez, which is a tremendously important area with new industrial parks, and it's it's a huge generator of trips for us in the region. And then how that extends towards the west and even connects to the Santa Teresa area. The map also shows some of the improvements or the new connection that is needed from Samalayuca, from south of Juarez, going to the east and connecting to the Tornillo Guadalupe bridge. That bypass has been in the books or in the workings for years. And hopefully, it'll get built soon. And then also the map shows the potential for a rail bypass, which is something that the state of New Mexico looked at a few years ago. A feasibility study was completed, but it really is a great opportunity for us, because we know from the numbers that are coming out of the border master plan, the forecast, rail traffic has a potential to increase tremendously, but our infrastructure here in our region in Ciudad Juarez and on the El Paso side is very limited. It will not allow us to carry a lot more traffic, more trains per day. So the idea of the bypass really would be a tremendous benefit to the region. So again, this is a true binational model of transportation on both sides. Next, please. So with that, I'll turn it over to David to talk about the city projects.
Good morning, Chair and board members. Thank you for inviting us to speak to you all today. We, like Eduardo said, we gave this to BTAC last week, I think it was. It's not been that long. And so one of the things that we wanted to, the points I wanted to get across to the BTAC and to the Secretary of State of Texas and the other regions is that El Paso, we have a really unique committee of agencies, stakeholders. We work with this group, with the Bridge Steering Committee. We've had it in place for the last 5 years, and I think you've heard me speak about this group. But one of the things we wanted to get across, is that no other region in Texas, in New Mexico, Arizona, California, nobody has this group like we do here, and it's been a tremendous help to the city of El Paso, to the other stakeholders, to people in Juarez, all the agencies both in El Paso and in Juarez. When it comes to coordination efforts, projects, initiatives, pilot programs. You name it. This group has been fantastic to work with. It takes a lot of time to have it running for the last 5 years. It's just, somebody can say, just one meeting, right, every month. But really, there's a lot of man hours, a lot of effort goes into to retain the group. There's a lot of turnover within the agencies. For example, in Aduana, we've had many administrators be running the operations in Juarez. And so it takes a lot of effort to have momentum going with all these projects, the changes, from the migrant crisis to what we're dealing with right now. And so it's really, a unique group that allows us to coordinate our efforts, our projects in the region. And so we talked about this group with BTAC. When we get this presentation, with this committee, we were able to also create a CIP for all bridges within the city limits, all modes, both northbound and southbound. in both El Paso and Juarez. And so that list of projects we submitted to TxDOT is one of the 4 lists that we submitted to TxDOT for this water master plan that shows the needs in El Paso and in Juarez at these bridges. Big and small, from realignment of lanes at the bridges to expansion projects. And so it's a pretty wide mix of projects on this list. And so on this committee, we have more than 20 agencies and organizations that are part of this committee, nonprofits, maquiladoras, we have Index, transportistas, we have federal agencies, state, local, both in El Paso and in Juarez, and we meet with them every month. And working with this committee also, we were able to, process map each of the crossings in both directions, assign wait times, trying to look at bottlenecks and things that we can improve. And we also have a new website, relatively new website that we launched a few years ago, pdnuno.com. If you go to that website, the City of El Paso maintains a lot of data and process on wait times. We have a lot of our projects that are there. A lot of the agencies are on the website itself. And so, people that travel back and forth can go to the website, look at traffic cameras to see conditions at the bridges, decide what bridge they want to use before they get stuck in the queue. And so it's a really also unique feature that we have in El Paso that we're trying to push out to the public to help them, plan their trips as they go between our 2 sister cities. And if you go to the next slide. And so with TxDOT, with this water master plan, what we did is we worked with all the agencies that are in this group, and we compiled 4 lists. The first one is the city's CIP, and that's a city council approved list of projects that we have. We're being funded by either state funding for Rider 44 or by the city P3 program that allows us to set aside money from the tolls to reinvest back into the bridge system. So that's our CIP. The projects are about 10 or 12 across all bridges, not just the city owned, but also BOTA as well. So that's the first list. The second list is the list that I mentioned right now. Those projects that were identified over the last 5 years, working with this committee, not just city projects, but GSA, CBP, Fideicomiso de Puentes, all the other agencies have projects here that are showing the needs that we have in El Paso across all areas, local, state, federal areas, again, like I said, in both sides of the border. And then also the third list is a list that was sent to us by the state of Chihuahua, by the city of Juarez, compiled with their agencies, with Aduana, with the city of Juarez, with IMIP, the planning office in Juarez. And so this list, they compiled for their local needs within the road network, within the city footprint, the state footprint. It addresses many of the projects that other had in that previous slide with the map that shows the entire region. And then the last list is a list that CBP, the field office, actually submitted to us, showing their needs within the facilities at every single bridge, from lighting to parking expansions to full redesign of BOTA. That's a pretty extensive list that they vetted within the field office in El Paso. They submitted it to us, and then we passed it over to TxDOT for this water master plan. So all these projects are pretty extensive. We wanted to make sure, like I said, that we tell the state in Austin that our region in El Paso, we are working together as a group. There's a lot of overlap in these efforts, and I'll show you a few examples here in a second. So if you go to the next slide. So again, these 4 lists are pretty extensive. There's hundreds of projects on the list. And so we wanted to showcase 3 or 4 of them just to give them an idea of what we are trying to pursue with our efforts. The first one is our key priority project for the city and for our committee, and that's ITS at BOTA and Zaragoza. Many of you know about this because you were actually the ones that were instrumental in getting it on the ground and getting the funding for the city, and that's through Rider 44. So most of you know what this is. It's having DMSs, cameras, weight and collection devices for data. It's essentially a way to modernize the port. These 2 ports, not only for trucks, but also for vehicles and pedestrians. It's going to allow the city to have a better system to coordinate efforts day to day on activities, whether it's a port closure, a protest, congestion, an incident, whatever it may be. With these devices, it'll help us modernize the ports and get the messages across to not only across agencies, but also the public. Again, all this data is going to be on that website, pdnuno.com, that travelers can use, whether in Juarez and El Paso. And this we're doing not, the city can't do this alone, right? So we're working with TxDOT, with Tomas Dueño and his staff. We're right now trying to finalize the AFA that's going to allow the city to have access to these dollars to actually get the project designed and constructed. We've made a lot of progress so far for the last 3 years working with the state. It's a really unique project, and so we're trying to navigate through that process, but we're really hopeful that we're going to take the AFA to City Council within the next couple of months. And again, working with TxDOT, with CBP, with TTI, with EPPD, with Fideicomiso de Puentes. So Fideicomiso de Puentes is our counterpart in Juarez. They're the ones that own the bridges. They own Stanton, PDN, and Zaragoza on the Mexican side. And so they are actually going through the same process, same as us, which is fantastic. It's great timing. They're actually also enhancing their ITS systems. They're actually implementing totally new systems. And so it'll allow us to have the systems talk to each other, not only for wait times, but also for the toll payment system. So if, for example, you have an eFastPass or prepaid method with the city, the idea is to have that same tag be used and compatible with the Mexican system. So you don't have to have multiple tags on your vehicle. You can just have the same one with 2 accounts on the same tag. Again, just one example that no other region has that, to my knowledge. Again, so to have a really regional integrated system at the bridges. And if you go to the next slide. And the next slide is essentially ITS 2.0. We're completing the system citywide at Stanton and PDN, trying to get on the method that we have with Bora and Zaragoza, have the same system in place at these 2 ports. Working with CID and Ivera Hernandez, we submitted a grant to the feds just a few weeks ago to fund most of these improvements at Stanton especially. And so we're trying to complete the entire ITS system and the network within the city bridges, again, not just the city-owned, but also Bora as well. And so we're trying to make all these improvements, again, working with Fideicomiso and the other agencies. If you go to the next slide. And the next one is going to be a key project for not only the city, but the full committee. So this one is we're really trying to get a feasibility study be done, get completed on the US side to expand, to modernize, and enhance the operations on the US side at the Isla Zaragoza port, not just in cargo, also in vehicles and pedestrians, from parking areas to pick up and drop off areas. Again, having more technology, redesign the layout for the cargo lot. We've talked to CBP and they are open to working with the city on pursuing this study. They went through the same process at Bora just 2 years ago. And so we want to move forward with Isleta and the cities, both in Juarez and El Paso, are growing to the east. And so we're really trying to focus on expansion and modernizing this port. There's been a lot of investment in this area. We have the ITS, we have WINRA that Eduardo mentioned, we have the TxDOT projects that are improving the loop and I-10 in that area. Like I said, Fideicomiso de Puentes is also investing, and Aduana modernize the entire strip. You see that green area, that's the Aduana facility. They also reconfigured the layout for the cargo lot in 2016. So again, trying to build an momentum on these projects and now focus on the US side. And if you go to the next slide, and this is one last program that we also showed off really to BTAC and to the other regions. No other region has this either in the US-Mexico border, and that's our cross-border survey. We actually presented the findings on this survey to the City Council this week on Monday. Really unique project. We had to pause it because of COVID. We had to pull the surveyors, which you see on these pictures at PDN and Zaragoza, because of safety concerns with the health with the pandemic. But we did start again in the fall of 2019. We collected data for 2 full quarters, paused it in mid-March. And so we intend to resume this program and the surveys as soon as conditions allow. As soon as there's a vaccine, there's safety is in place, and we can have the surveyors out in the field again. And so again, this is giving us a lot of data profiles on crossers, what they do when they cross back and forth, not only Mexican residents coming to El Paso, but also US residents going to Juarez. How much money they spend, what industry they go, whether it's buying goods, getting services, trying to understand those dynamics, how wait times impact our crossings on a day-to-day basis, the bridge choice, travel mode choice, whether they prefer to walk across, drive. So again, this is a really unique project. I'm more than happy to come back to you all at the next meeting perhaps and present you all with the same briefing. We have the report, the full report on pdnuno.com. If you go to the data tab, you can download it with the full findings, but I'm happy to come back to you all with the briefing so you can see the results from the survey. And again, this is something that El Paso has, being funded by the city of El Paso, by Bridges, with our budget. No other region has this, and this is working with Colegio de la Frontera Norte in Tijuana and Juarez that allow us to have those surveyors be out there, talking to crossers. So I think that's it on my end, and I'm going to pass it over to Tomas Trevino now. Thank you.
Thank you, David. When we presented to the committee, Eduardo did a really good job of presenting the infrastructure needs within the MPO boundaries, and David did a very good job presenting the needs at the bridges. But since this is a regional effort, the one port of entry that wasn't discussed was the port of Presidio. And so basically my presentation centered around the port of entry of Presidio. We just concluded a 162-mile corridor study that went from Presidio to Fort Stockton. During that corridor study, they did look at current and future needs for US 67. The importance of US 67 is it gets trade and commerce up to Interstate 10 and to go east-west, or if they take 285 up to Interstate 20. Currently, the port of Presidio handles 62 million tons of cargo a year at an economic value of about $151 million. This is projected to grow to 142 million tons of cargo at an economic value of $390 million a year. So in 2045. So currently we have two projects scheduled for US 67. One is passing lanes that goes from Marfa down to Presidio. The other one is a safety rumble strip job. We also have two ongoing construction jobs. One is, of course, another bridge there at the port of entry. And we just led a job here recently to rehabilitate 72 miles of the Texas Pacifico Railroad from Presidio to Paisano Junction, just there in south of Alpine. Sorry, we have some typing or something going on.
Somebody
okay,
needs
thank you.
to keep their, is it, okay.
Okay, thank you. Future needs along this corridor include operational improvements needed in Presidio, the city of Marfa, and the city of Alpine, along with additional passing opportunities along the US 67 corridor. All those were identified in the corridor study. Again, it's not within the MPO boundaries, but it is a critical port of entry for the El Paso region. So with that, I'll turn it back to Eduardo.
Thank you, Tomas and David. Just a couple of final thoughts on this presentation to BTAC. I think our presentation, and of course I'm biased, but I think our presentation was a lot better than the one from Laredo and the Rio Grande Valley. And we got really good comments because it really shows the close coordination that we have, in our region. And I failed to say more about also the coordination that we have with the state of New Mexico. I mean, this is obviously a TxDOT exercise, but in our region, you saw that with the RCRAP project, the State Highway 178, that leads directly to a New Mexico facility, right? So there has to be close coordination between Texas and New Mexico. The same for the Borderland Expressway. As you all know, the improvements to New Mexico 404 are already funded. So it is so important for us to tell the BTAC, the rest of the state, how important for us the coordination has been. And again, I'll say it again, kudos to the city's effort to have this committee, the binational steering committee. It's amazing. We here at the border, and Mayor, I'm sure you will agree with this. we suffer the policies that are decided in Washington D.C. or in Mexico City, and they do their things, and we take it in the chin here at the border, right? Whether it's closing the borders or the migrant crisis that we had last year and stuff like that. So this committee really helps at the local level to try to deal with these things. We can't do much about the policies that are decided at the federal level, but there's a lot of really good things that we can do at the local level, coordinating with CBP and aduanas, coordinating between the city of El Paso and the fideicomiso, like David stated, and coordinating improvements to at the bridge level, at the crossing level, and so on. So I'm just very excited about that. But then moving forward with the border master plan, it is so important for us to say how important our region is, right, compared to Laredo and the Rio Grande Valley. I've said it many times here, but Laredo gets a lot of attention because it's the entrance to the I-35 corridor. Well, here in El Paso, we're the entrance to the state of Texas for I-10. So it's not just all the stuff that is coming in from the West Coast, but all the stuff that is generated across the border. High value products that are put together in the maquilas in Juarez, that are crossing through our bridges, our crossings here in the region, including Santa Teresa, and then moving over to the rest of the state. So that message has to be pounded to the decision makers in Austin, whether it's TxDOT or the commission, and we're doing our best to do that. So we will also call on many of you to help us make that message stronger when we as we complete the border master plan. So I think with that we're done, Mayor.
Are there any questions?
Mayor, this is Miller. Can I make a comment, please?
Yes, you may.
This is a great report, and we're I applaud the efforts on what we've done and to put together this presentation. The only thing that I have to comment on is it seems like we have no emphasis at all on the Rio Guadalupe Bridge. And certainly I understand the logistics and the demographic area, the issues that we have with it and the non-connectivity in Mexico and everything. But we have a state-of-the-art facility that is languishing for lack of use. I know that we don't make those decisions, but I think that if there was any way that we could use any influence at all to figure out a way to use that facility, it's I'm interested, of course, because it's in my area and it would be for East El Paso. At one time, the Border Highway East was a significant project in our plan, and we don't even hear about it anymore. So continued development in the valley, in the lower valley, and there, maybe we should, I understand that there are issues beyond our control that we cannot influence, but maybe we can influence. We don't need to forget that we don't need to forget that facility and the possibilities that we have down there. So that's my.
Eduardo, do you want to respond?
Yeah, I mean, most definitely, Mr. Miller. One of the things that we are currently also working, and goes back to what David was saying, that those surveys, the cross-border surveys, are also very important. But we need to better understand the origin destination traffic, going from Juarez to El Paso, northbound as well as southbound. One of the things that I mentioned to you before is that, part of the lack of use for the Tornillo Guadalupe Bridge is that it is really far away from origins and destinations on both sides, right? So right now, if you have an industrial park in the southeastern part of Juarez, the natural crossing is the Zaragoza Bridge, right? And you have a lot of the cross-border facilities where the drayage trucks need to transload, around that area. So, we need to get a better understanding to see why, a truck that starts a trip in the industrial parks in Juarez would travel down to the Tornillo Guadalupe and then have to go back all the way up to transload, as opposed to just crossing there at Zaragoza. So a lot of this is empirical data, a lot of anecdotal information that we hear from transportistas and from the maquila industry and all that. But in order to make a better case for the usage of the Tornillo Guadalupe, we need a little more of that information and maybe, try to encourage development on the El Paso side so that those transloading facilities can be built around that area so that, especially for the trucks that are ultimately going to the east, well, you're already going there, crossing a Tornillo, doing your transloading and all that, where an American, truck picks up the cargo and then takes it, east. So, we are working hard and trying to get a better understanding of more detailed origin destination information.
And then if I may real quick chime in also. So I think, Mr. Miller, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's really extremely important that facility is not it's underutilized right now, completely underutilized. And so, when I've been out there, it's beautiful, state-of-the-art, beautiful facility. The GSA and CBP really did not hold back on the layout. It addresses a lot of the needs and issues that we have here and within our ports within the city limits that are much older. But yeah, so the road access on the Mexican side, that's the biggest problem, right? That is totally out of our control. That's something that we discuss with the committee regularly. And also any chance we get, SSFA with the federal agencies in Juarez, Mexico City, we bring that as a concern. The bridges or our system, they're substitutes of each other. And so it'd be great to have that as another option for users to be able to use. And just also so you all know, we do have members from the county in our committee. We have Jose Landeros and a couple others that attend regularly with us, working through those issues out in the county. And then also Santa Teresa. We have members from the industry in Santa Teresa, involved in these meetings. The port director with CBP in Santa Teresa is as well part of the committee. And so we're trying to, again, not just focus on the city's priorities, but also the other communities. But I think you're spot on, and it's really important that it's not being utilized to its full potential.
Tommy Gonzalez wants to speak.
Wanted to bring some context to this discussion. I know that in 2014, when we looked at the bridges and the issues, and we were getting a lot of questions from people on the dais, just a lot of like the gee whiz kind of questions, a lot of elementary questions, quite frankly, on the bridge system, and that was because we were operating it like a parking lot. In other words, we were just collecting the toll, and there was no plan, and we didn't have the right people there. And so we put a strategic plan together that was approved in 15. The mayor Mayor Margot has updated that in 17, and then this past year we did another 25 and 2025 update to it. But the bottom line is we put the right people like David there and economists. David's a planner, but I think he doubles as an economist, and he's a very bright individual and really has done a very good job of leading that process. But the point I wanted to make is we didn't have a plan before. And then we put a plan in place, we put the right people in place. We did that Lean Six Sigma project that included all the stakeholders, and they all brought black belts, Lean Six Sigma black belts to the table. And that's where that $32 million came from that we put to the council. And then our state delegation did an amazing job of really shepherding that through. And then there was some language issues that Mayor Margot has really done a great job with. But the bottom line is that's how that transpired. And then now there's issues that we need, and there's issues that the bridges need. And part of what we did with the bridges is we treated it as a system, and it wasn't treated like that before. It was like our stuff, county stuff, all this other stuff, Santa Teresa, all these, and what we did in that process is we brought it all together and made one system, or treated it like one system. That some of that money is even going to bridges we don't even own, like in terms of making improvements, because it's going to improve the system. So that's important. But what I wanted to really segue into is another matter. A lot of folks have brought in, well, this other thing's happening in this area and this place and that place. We're talking about, I know Mayor Marga's been involved, and so has some other people in the community and some people on the MPO, like State Rep Ortega, on the idea of a coalition to put a coalition together, because the other difference between us and Laredo is involved with a lot of coalitions. I know that when we did the Ports to Plains initiative on the western part of I-35, we connected to Laredo. Laredo also collects to the I-35 coalition. And that brings more attention, that brings more dollars, that brings more synergy in why all the points that have been made already as to why it's so important to get more money for El Paso, because then it's going to help all these other entities on I-10 and all these other partners on I-10 and all these other needs along I-10 and beyond. So I just wanted to bring that kind of to the table, in that I really believe that, we need to set up a coalition, not, like I-35 coalition. Midland Odessa even has one. They've had it since the 90s. It's called MOTRAN, Midland Odessa Transportation Coalition. So I know that the chamber's working on that. I know Eduardo is very familiar with that as well. I just thought I'd bring that up so that all the MPO could hear that, because that's a very good example of how we can be a major player, not only in the region, but statewide and multi-state, so that it really brings the type of attention that we need for El Paso, so that we can use this example of what we did with the bridges, where we had no plan, and now we have a plan. And where if we're just out and what some people consider, in a remote area, we're not connected. And I think we are. We're connected to everything. We're right on the precipice to everyone. Anyway, I just thought I'd share that. Thank you, Mayor, for the time.
Anybody else have anything?
If I could add something to what Mr. Gonzalez just said, spot on. I mean, first of all, yes, especially as an MPO, we need to look at all the crossings, all the bridges as a system, and we do that, and that requires, of course, coordination. But the second thing that he brought up, which is really interesting, is the studies that TxDOT has done for other corridors and other regions, like he mentioned Ports to Plains. Well, TxDOT is currently completing 2 studies. One of them is for the Permian Basin. Of course, we all know that oil and gas is tremendously important for the state and all that, but by doing this study, they are bringing a lot more attention to that region. At the same time, the Rio Grande Valley as a region, TxDOT also completed a study, or is in the process of completing a study for that region, again highlighting the importance of the potential, the potential for economic development opportunities and all that. No secret, or there's no coincidence that the Permian Basin is getting a ton of money now in this UTP that was just approved for highway improvements, as well as the Rio Grande Valley. So we need to push for something like that for our region, to help us showcase the importance of I-10 and all of our area. Again, not movement of stuff coming in from the West Coast, but the stuff that we generate here locally in our region. So we're going to be working with TxDOT to get that moving as well.
Fine. If there are no other comments, let's move to number 11.
I have a comment. I'm sorry, Mayor.
Excuse me. Mary, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to point out, and I really want to say thank you for all this hard work, and I want to build a little bit on what Mayor Miller said. I know that there is some complexity to fully engaging the eastern part of El Paso County. However, especially as we start to think through the building of the Amazon facility and there are other opportunities or needs that might arise, I just want to plant that seed that as we build future plans, as we think through where growth is happening, as we think through some of the eastern part of El Paso County. That was my only point. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's move to number 11.
All right. Number 11, it's a regional mobility strategy, RMS 2020 project development. And this is just the monthly report on on the development of all the projects for RMS 2020. It's in your package. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Just a couple of highlights that to mention. For two of the projects, for the Nuevo Hueco Tanks project and for the project in Vinton, Valley Chile Road, we obtained we collectively, but through TxDOT obviously and the local governments, we got the letters of authority for that. Now allows the local governments to engage with their consultants and all that to start the engineering piece for those. So those are two, big milestones for those two projects, and thanks to TxDOT and the local government staff and all that for getting this done. So unless you have any other questions, again, all the information is in your backup packages.
I don't hear any questions, so let's move to 12.
All right, item 12 is the RMS 2050 travel demand model update. And Salvador from MPO, I think you're going to start this.
Yes, good morning to everybody. Very briefly, I just wanted to give you an update. Specifically, I wanted to talk about the Delphi process for the demographics. And for that, we have on the line ATG Mike Cheney. So Mike, please go ahead.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good morning. Just going to briefly update you today on our process of developing the 2050 demographic inputs to your 2050 travel demand model. Next slide, please. Also going to briefly touch on Delphi panel participation. Many of you were involved in that. I'll review the draft demographics by sub-area for 2050 and go over our next steps. Next slide, please. We worked with the Texas Demographic Center to develop the county control totals for 2050 first. I want to mention that because they're very important and that, as the name implies, they determine the amount of growth we're going to allocate to the region. So I'll briefly go over what those control totals are. We've to date completed the Delphi process. I'm happy to report that we had great participation and got the feedback that we need to guide the development of the forecast demographics. And I'll go over the exact stats on participation a few slides down. In 2050 sub-area population and employment are in QC along with the base year demographics at a more detailed TAZ level. Are also in QC right now. Next slide, please. So these are your population county level control totals. Again, they're an input to the Delphi panel process, and they kind of anchor our forecasting. I'll point out that the region gains 225,000 in population over the next 33 years. That's around a 1% annual average growth rate. So that brings us to about 1.1 million in 2050. That's up from about 890,000 in 2017. Next slide, please. Similar concept for employment. The region is going to gain 215,000 over the next 33 years. Employment is growing a little faster than population. It's at around 2% annual average growth rate. So that we're starting at 311,000 in 2017 and growing to 526,000 by 2050 for employment. Next slide, please. So we completed the Delphi process. Again, we got the feedback we need for that, and thank you for participating if you were part of that. It was our first virtual Delphi process, so the challenges were a little different than we normally have when we conduct the process in person, but in general, it went very well. We had a kickoff meeting on June 11th. We ended our first web-based round on July 5th and ended the second round on August 6th. So participation always drops off a little bit in the web-based rounds, but we're very happy with the turnout. It stayed fairly consistent with around 40 to 50 stakeholders participating and completing the surveys. And in the very near future, we'll be sending out a closing email with some summary statistics for all the panel members and this board as well. Next slide, please. So a little detail here. The Delphi panel was successful in allocating population to the 12 sub-areas we defined. This chart presents a comparison between round 1 and round 2 allocation of the population growth. You'll see that it's clear that round 1 and round 2 are very similar. As expected, the small changes that we do see seem to kind of moderate the extreme highs and lows. For example, the Far East sub-area received the highest allocation of growth of 82,000 in population, and it was slightly reduced in round 2. So key here is the majority of the panel did not make changes to the allocation in round 2, and that a majority of the panel are in agreement on the level of growth in each sub-area. So a consensus in the growth pattern was reached, and as such, we concluded the Delphi panel. So, additionally, we typically see that participation drops off dramatically if we have to go to round 3, so it's really good that consensus was reached here. Next slide, please. So the Delphi panel was also successful in allocating employment to the same 12 sub-areas. Again, this chart presents a comparison between round 1 and round 2. Again, it's clear that the rounds are very similar and that the small changes exhibited between rounds seem to moderate the highs and lows in the sub-areas. So the 3 sub-areas with the highest allocation of employment were slightly reduced in round 2. These were the Far East sub-area, the Mission Valley sub-area, and the Waco Tank sub-area. So for example, the Far East sub-area received the highest allocation, and it was reduced in round 2. Eduardo always mentioned that the new Amazon warehouse is in the Far East district, and the Delphi panel allocated sufficient employment there with around 81,000 in employment growth. So, next slide. So again, we're going to be sending out a summary to the Delphi panel in the very near future. It's going to be a little web-based map that has some statistics on it and denotes the amount of population and employment in each sub-area. The draft 2017 demographics are in QC, as I mentioned. They should probably be finalized this month, depending on the speed of that QC. 2050 demographics are well advanced. We have draft numbers for the sub areas that we just went over, and we're moving forward with allocating those to the more detailed traffic analysis zones. We can't finalize that until QC is finished on the base year demographics, because those obviously flow up in the process. And with that, I'm happy to address any questions or comments.
Are there any questions? Not hearing any, we'll move on.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Item 13, training and absences of members for MPO committees. And I think, Marisol, you're going to explain the...
Yes. Yes. This item is the training and absences for members of the MPO committees. It pertains to TPB, TPEC, and EC. And just to let you know that October 1st, 2020, all the absences and trainings are reset. I sent an email on Tuesday the 15th for information on online training, and also we will be providing training opportunities facilitated by MPO. If you have any questions on trainings, just go ahead and send me an email and I'll look up on your information. The PDF that is attached here on this item gives the information for, if you can scroll down a little, Gabby. It gives the information, the total hours on the right-hand side completed this year, and the carryover that you will be having on the next year is on the carryover there on the screen. And then the other thing is the absences. All the absences are going to be erased, and TPB and EC members have 3 unexcused absences permitted before you lose your vote, and you lose your vote after 5 cumulative absences. So if you have any questions, just let me know.
Scroll when you said, I didn't get the stop right there. Okay, all right. That's all I did. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions?
Mayor Margot,
Is it Walter? Is that you? You're muted.
I'm sorry. Mayor Margot, it occurred to me a while ago that Marty Boyd presented a very comprehensive avenue. I was wondering if the board might agree that if we participated in her program of about 4 hours, that would constitute a complete, that would get us our hours necessary. The board could decide that would give us the hours necessary to qualify for this particular thing. It seemed like what she was presenting was a very comprehensive transportation text dot information, and maybe the board could consider, I know that we can't consider it today, but would later that if we did complete that program that they have offered, that it would constitute a complete, we could meet our requirement with that class.
Yes.
Mayor Margot?
I'm sorry. On the summary page here, it lets you know that if you can go ahead and send me any other conferences or any other events that you have attended. If you'll go ahead and send me that, and I can go ahead and show it to the executive director or the TPB chair, and they can go ahead either approve or disapprove the hours. But I'm thinking, yes, Marty's training would be something that you can go ahead and send to us, and they can go ahead and see if that can give you the credit. But you can send me any training conferences that you do between October 1st and January 28th.
Yeah. And I agree with that. The workshop that TxDOT is planning, yeah, you definitely will get credit as part of the training you attend.
Renee, did you have a question?
Yes, sir. I was just going to echo the same sentiments as Walter Miller. I think that it should be considered, but I feel that, we're all on the same page. Thank you.
Okay, let's move into the executive director report.
All right. 14 is executive director's report. A, update on the fiscal year 21 UTP public comment period. This is just a very simple to let you know that the UTP was adopted by the Texas Transportation Commission in their meeting last month. And again, no surprises. It's pretty much what we saw in the draft. And again, we submitted the letter. I think we put that letter again in your package, the letter that we submitted as part of the comments. But that's pretty much it, unless you have any other questions or comments on the UTP. All right, then the next one is the impacts of the 2020 U.S. Census on transportation funding. Again, just a very simple statement here that a reminder to all of the people watching this that participating in the census is tremendously important for many reasons, but very specifically for transportation funding. So I know that the close of the census is coming up very, very quickly. And so I'm just encouraging everybody and some of you TPB members, I'm, through your emailing list or any other social media or anything, encourage the population to complete the census. I mean, it's tremendously important. And of course, I think about it more selfishly thinking about transportation, but it has major impacts and consequences if we do not, have 100% participation on the census here in El Paso. That's all I have.
Any questions? If not, we'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn. Lisa.
Have a motion and a second. All will be in favor. Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you all.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.